And welcome to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Milan FM, the sound of Lagos. I trust we all had an amazing, awesome, beautiful weekend, and we're even up to an even much more, better week. Let's hopefully a more productive week, a great week, a blessed week ahead. I wish us all amazing times ahead. Well, this week is Salah, this week is Ileya, so a lot of people are super excited about the long weekend. However, there's that Friday break in between, so don't forget to go to work on Friday. I don't know how it's going to pan out, but the indications that the public holiday would run from 28th of June to 29th, that's Wednesday to Thursday. So Friday there's still work, so let's not dilly-dally on that one. Okay, so I just as we mentioned, this is Milan 98.3 FM. It's time for Trends in the Papers, where we'll be looking through the major trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. But before then, every Monday we try to bring us up to speed as regards what trended over the weekend, since we didn't have Trends in the Papers Saturday and Sunday. So Trends in the Papers over the weekend, we had governors probe predecessors, review contracts, reverse appointments. More dams needed to tackle looming floods, says DG of NHSA. Nigerians should ignore El Rufai's comment on Muslim dominance, says ex-presidential candidate Dumebi Kachiku. PDP may suspend Wike or Tom others over romance with Tinubu. Canada rejected 114 asylum-seeking Nigerians in 6 months. Families, workers devise survival strategy amid rising prices. Well, FUAD has always said, everyone to their tent, I guess. Just look for how to take care of yourself. Financial system rotten under Emefiele, says President Tinubu. Monitor political appointees' accounts regularly, CBN tells banks. Salah, traders lament low sales amid high prices. I don't want to know how low or how high the price is. Please, I'm expecting meat, so I just ensure you get something for this salad, because the meat just has to go around. That's just on a lighter note. Moving forward, we also have varsities adopt 140 as minimum cutoff mark for 2023 admission. Tribunal, Atiku PDP closed case after calling 27 witnesses. Residents cry for help as flood submerges Abuja suburb. Ignore lobbies, prioritize merit in constituting new boards. Crisis looms in Senate over alleged plot to destabilize minority caucus. And finally, Nigeria, Ghana sign MOU to combat trans-border crimes. Those were the major trending stories over the weekend. And now we'll move on to the trending stories we have for this morning. My name is OMOBOLA Sandra, and I'll be having FUAD SAHEED joining in via the phone line to give analysis to every one of the major stories that we will be taking this morning. Good morning, FUAD.
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. How are you doing?
I'm excited.
Excited about what, really?
Meat. I'll be eating meat this week.
Oh, yeah, of course, enough meat. Yeah.
I've prepared
that one. That one is guaranteed. Don't worry. Just from today, start fasting.
Oh, but there's there are lamentations out there as regard, or there are concerns out there as regards the prices of ram and whatnot for the festivities.
Mm-hmm. Of course, yes. It's expected. It's always like that during the Salah period. But I still know that Islam as a religion does not cause us any pain unless we just want to cause it upon ourselves. It's not compulsory to kill if you don't have the means. So you don't go around borrowing or stressing yourself unnecessarily. If you have the means, kill a ram. If you don't have the means, celebrate with others that are able to kill. So there's no compulsion in it. It's just about if you have the means or you don't have the means. Just
by all means. So, all right. Now
there's no by all means there.
By all means, just do what you can to just just take care of yourself first before going out of your way to try to please people just because you want to share meat in your area. That's what I was trying to say.
But don't worry, mainland meat is guaranteed. No wala. 100%.
I'm so happy. All right, moving forward, Fuad, have you met the demolition man?
Which of the demolition man? Is it the one in Kano? The demolition governor.
The one in Kano State. He was on another demolition spree over the weekend. Although there's
I think the situation in Kano has gotten to a level of pettiness that is unbelievable. That's the height of political pettiness, I must say, because again, we understand that it could be very tough sometimes when, you're on the other side of the opposition and then now you are in power. Just let bygones be. These are things that were built with huge sums of money and then you go around demolishing in the name of. But again, it's unfortunate.
Very beautiful infrastructures, beautiful, buildings, and just all to be pulled down. Well, so well, let's.
Because of political difference,
Well, they said they're on government land, so that's what they said. So that's what we're working with. They said that they're on government land. Anyways, let's move on now to what we have trending across the papers this morning. The major, of course, which is Naira devaluation. But before we go on, we'll start with the Nation newspaper. The major headline there says why discos are bent on electricity tariff increase. And AEDC, that's Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, says fluctuation of Naira exchange makes upward review inevitable. So, as indications have been going, by July 1st, electricity tariff will rise despite the caution from labor, manufacturers and consumers. And this indication came when one of the electricity distribution companies announced that only a hike in electricity tariff could keep it in business, and other discos are expected to follow suit. And of course the disco that made the announcement was AEDC, that's Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. So FUAD, despite or in spite of the call for caution by the NLC President Joe Ajaero last week as regards the increase in electricity tariff, the distribution companies seem to be resolute as regards the hike.
You know what, Sandra? Sometimes I look at these discos, or what we can call the disco dancers, and I ask myself, what exactly is their job? What exactly are they giving to Nigerians as distribution companies at the three levels of our power sector? We can talk about the GENCOs, the PSCOs, and then for distribution companies, what exactly? Because the reality is that, look, generation is done, transmission takes it over, and then, of course, they hand it over to distribution companies to now give to houses and, households. So you ask yourself, what is their level of investment as a distribution company? As I speak to you today, Sandra, communities are still buying their own transformers. I don't know, unless maybe our callers will prove me wrong. I don't know when last any of the distribution companies by their own, as a result of complaints by a community, they bought a transformer and replaced a bad one. Last week, were you the one that told me that people are still referring to discos as NEPA? And I said, because there's nothing different. They are still behaving like the NEPA of old. How many of the cable lines have they replaced? This is even a disco that cannot even facilitate the distribution of the prepaid meters to households. And the only thing they keep complaining about, I've not seen the discos talking about being deliberate about ensuring that households are well serviced in terms of distribution of electricity. The only thing they keep complaining about is revenue shortfall. They need to increase tariffs. That's the only way they are going to remain in business, declaring losses and all of that.
But if they're blaming, this increase now, or they are putting it on fluctuating exchange rates, how does it apply?
That's what I'm saying, that sometimes we need to dig into these distribution companies and know what exactly they are doing, because it would be nice to know what part of their service is dollarized. If you understand what I'm saying, what part of their service, like, for example, if you look at the telecommunication companies, you can talk about maintenance of their masts. You can talk about the fact that, look, most of their masts are run on diesel generators and all of that. It would be nice for the discos to come open and tell us that, look, this is part of the service that we render to you that requires us, having enough forex to be able to, service you properly. It would be nice to know what part of their service is dollarized. To the extent that now that the Naira exploded is the reason why they have to continue to increase tariffs. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because I look at it, what exactly is the job of the distribution companies and how does forex affect them? If they can continue to take advantage of being in bed with them, statements talking about consumer protection.
Trying to make sense of a lot of things, as regards this electricity tariff, pay for anything. However, Fuad, I trust you remember that for some months now, we have been discussing the fact that some distribution companies are being owed like huge amounts of money. And then, the fact that some distribution companies are also even owing banks as well. Can we tie this or relate it to this increase? Are we now paying for, some debt issues that these discos have? Is that a possibility?
Well, it's not impossible. But Sandra, I've always said this. The reason why we think that, look, the distribution company should not be done, just like the telecom guys. In fact, there are people that can even decide that, look, they don't even want to make calls or even use data. But when it comes to electricity, it's almost like, look, every household wants it. And that's why we are saying that, look, why didn't the discos make it a priority, Sandra, that every household in Nigeria or institution or agency has prepaid meter? Because the reality of prepaid meter is that, look, you don't recharge, you don't use. You understand? You are paying before you use. It's not like postpaid. So that would have guaranteed their revenue. Sharp practices or people bypassing anything would be impossible because, look, you don't load, you don't use electricity. For me, that is an assured way of making revenue. But when they don't make it a part of policy, because again, I assume that because they are not delivering enough to Nigerians, that's why they are not even making. And then that I've always said, and it will be the same position. Those licenses giving up. And so when people come and say, hey, they are not making enough money, what have you invested in the business to even justify you making money? That's the big question we should ask in this school company.
Well, a statement by the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria said a higher electricity tariff will directly increase the cost of production for manufacturers. And the statement goes further to say, already, we have energy constituting between 28 to 40% in the cost structure of manufacturing industries. Yes. So you can imagine the impact on manufacturing industries that are energy intensive, such as metal processing, heavy machinery, chemicals, manufacturing, and all of that. So as it is now, manufacturers' profit margins will definitely reduce in the coming months if we go ahead with this 40% increase.
Automatically.
Yes.
Automatically. People will lose their jobs because what manufacturers will do is to
cut costs.
Prioritize.
Yes.
In cutting costs, because they have to continue to produce to remain in business. So in cutting costs, what they might do is to downsize their workforce, to remain in business. And that means a lot of people will be thrown into the unemployment market. So unemployment goes up again.
All right. Thank you very much, Fuad. That's the major headline on the front page of The Nation. Discos are still bent on electricity tariff increase by July 1st. All right. Now, still on the front page of The Nation, we have Dogara Oshoba back petrol subsidy removal and service chiefs. That is on page 4 of The Nation. I also have here eminent Nigerians mourn mass communication professor Lai Osho. That is on page 2. A very, very unfortunate incident in a mass communication and journalism community when he lost his life on Saturday on his way from Delta State University. Yes. His legacy definitely lives on in terms of books and the people that he has been able to mentor and teach and whatnot. Stories on page 2 of The Nation newspaper. Moving on now, we also have here experts optimistic despite foreign reserves drop to $34 billion. So finance and economic experts are optimistic that Nigeria's dwindling foreign reserves may start a slow recovery as policy measures by the government combine to halt the long-running depletion of the nation's external reserves. So Nigeria's foreign reserves dropped by $239 million to close the weekend at $34 billion. That's the lowest since September 3rd. However, Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission also reported about 15% increase in Nigeria's crude oil production, which is a major improvement in recent times. So for the story, before we go into the foreign reserves, the story now is that Nigeria is the largest crude producer in Africa.
No, we've always been.
Are we excited about that now?
Excited about what precisely? We return to what should ordinarily be our position in oil production in Africa. I think, I don't know what the figures are, but I suspect we are going to be hovering around 1.2 million barrels per day, right?
Yeah, 1.25 million barrels per day from 1.4.
So which is still a shortfall from, well, it's commendable, but not we are still not meeting our OPEC quota.
Oh, okay.
Well, we've been doing 1 million. I think it was a month ago that we dropped below 1 million. And that was when Angola took over from us, but we're back now. But I think the OPEC quota is still around 1.8 million barrels per day. So it means we are still not meeting our quota. So, but again, if you tie that to the issue of our reserves, I've always said it. All of the policy outlook of this present government is to make more money to the government. So naturally, I think our foreign reserve will go up again. I think the government will be able to make more money now that subsidy is gone and there's a lot of policies in place, to tighten loose ends and all of that. So naturally, all of these policies we are seeing, whether increasing electricity tariff, widening the tax nets and all of that, naturally would bring more money to the government. I've always said it. The only thing is that it's going to take more money away from the people. Because if you are now paying more for petrol, if you are now paying more for electricity, if you are now having to pay more taxes and levies, more Nigerians would have to now give more money to the government. So again, the policy outlook means that more money will be available to government, less money to the people. The promise of government now is that, look, the more money we have, the more we are able to deliver the dividends of democracy. But the big question, which is the same question I asked this morning, can we trust the government to deliver on the goods?
That's the big question, eh? That's the
big question. Can we trust them?
The story is on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. Moving on from that, you're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. This is Trends in the Papers. We're looking through major trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. We're also live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can drop your comments there even before we move on to Milan Focus, where you can share your comments live on air. Now, moving on now to the Guardian newspaper. 40% hike in vehicle duties worsen transport crisis and poverty.
You see, there is hike, increase, hike. Every day.
The poor cannot breathe like this. So.
No, we are going to breathe. They want us to breathe. But have you noticed that it's hike, increase in this, increase in that? So let's take this story.
We're hiking. That's interesting.
Hope they won't hike our hearts and mind.
It's okay. Least vehicle duty is now 1.1 million naira for. So as it is now, Nigeria will suffer a severe effect of that one. Nigeria should begin to look inwards for vehicle assemblage. Many transports will be abandoned. Demurrage will be flowing. When
they said the Beseme border port has been open, vehicles can now come in. One thing came to my mind. This is still about revenue drive. The cost of clearing vehicles will now go astronomical. It's going to go up. Although what will now happen is that the smugglers will now begin to do paddy with some corrupt custom agents and all of that. So you're going to see a lot of smuggling going on because a lot of these guys will not be able to pay the regular duties. So naturally, for corrupt custom officials, it's time to cash out because of desperation of people to want to smuggle these cars in. Again, it's still about revenue drive for this government. And until now, until now, we've been getting announcements of revenue drive, attempt to make more money, and all of that. Nothing on the table yet, Sandra. I'm still waiting for that day when we open the papers and then we begin to see what the government is telling Nigerians about how to, reduce this suffering. About how to ensure that they're pushing the effect of these very harsh policies that are coming up as a result of the revenue drive of the government. Not on any of the papers have I gotten any of that information. And also it would be nice for us to also open the papers and get the government to tell us what they are also doing to downsize the cost of governance. What are the sacrifices they also want to make? Because again, everything is just increase every day. And if the president had told the former president that this is the time to allow the poor breathe. Is this how to breathe? Are we breathing? Are we not being choked up already?
I'm so sorry. Well, a lot of people will tell you that they are not breathing, but let's look.
I'm not breathing too, Sandra. I must tell you.
Are you sure?
Forget the smiles and the pretenses when I come into the office, or we pretend as if all is well. I must say that, look, the incomes of ordinary Nigerians are being heavily depleted. Nigerians are not breathing. That is the reality.
All right. Well, as it is now, the cost of importing vehicles, including mass transit units and other imported commodities, would increase or could increase by as much as 20% in the coming weeks. And this is a direct consequence of last week's 40% increase in the foreign exchange rate for clearing operations. And this possibility would worsen the fear of a commuting crisis and the imminent increase in the poverty level. And experts are saying that the increase would complicate the inflation outlook, especially as Nigerians still rely majorly on importation for essential consumption. The breakdown is here. We have the details. However, permit me to just quickly jump to the Punch newspaper, because that's the major headline as well. And it's put differently. It says Naira devaluation pushes up vehicle duties by 40%. And there are writers to that says customs raise exchange rate from 422 naira to $1 to 589 naira to $1. And operators kick as import duties jump. Economics berate federal government, says policy will cause job loss, impoverish Nigerians, and worsen hardships. Let's see if the Punch has a different take on it. So, the CBN and the Nigeria Customs Service have taken the ongoing foreign exchange reforms to the maritime sector, with a 40% increase in the exchange rate used for calculating import duty. This development, which has led to a corresponding 40% on imported cargoes, including vehicles, has angered operators in the maritime sector, with clearing agents, freight forwarders and importers calling for an immediate reversal of the policy. This basically means, there will be a lot of abandoned vehicles at the ports.
You see, we're even talking about abandoned vehicles. A lot of people will lose their jobs.
Yes.
Because look, the maritime sector is always it's also a big employer of labor. Just imagine the thousands of Nigerians, that work in that sector. And if they are being stifled out of business, automatically more people will lose their jobs. It will lead to inflation. And luckily, I'm not the one saying it. These are experts saying that, look, if the government is not careful, what you are going to do is to further chill, stifle the maritime sector. And it will lead to unemployment. We just talked about electricity, right, Sandra?
Yeah.
Now we are talking about the maritime sector. And you see that all of these policies are still geared towards one thing: more money for the government. All of these policies we are seeing, reforms in the oil sector, reforms in the CBN in terms of our foreign exchange, reforms in the power sector. When I say reforms now, basically hiking fees and levies and taxes. The same thing in the maritime sector now. It is still geared towards making more money for the government. I know we've said it, that when I keep saying Nigerians should be ready and find a way to take care of themselves, I think to a great extent they are not beginning to understand me. The government will go on this massive revenue drive, which will further impoverish the people. It's not what it is. We can't gloss over it. We can't paraphrase it. But as people begin to get more impoverished, and they continue to bear the consequences of this harsh policy, are we sure the government is ready to do the needful? What is our corruption index? All of these monies, when eventually available to the government, will not end in private pockets. That's a worry for other Nigerians. And we're already seeing the indication, if the assembly is already budgeting 24 billion naira for themselves on housing allowance, what of other allowances? And then just recently, although it was denied, we also got the news that public servants are going to get about 100% increase in their pay. So it goes to show that, look, I'm hoping that this government will not further widen the gap between the rich and the poor, where the rich and affluent continues to make more money and get richer, and then the downtrodden continues to go deeper and deeper down the drain. But again, the maritime guys are already talking. I'm sure that agriculture will start to talk to very soon.
FUAD,
And then we now understand.
I totally understand how, Naira devaluation is pushing up a lot of things, especially with importers, unfortunately, and all of that. But I'm sorry, I still have to come back to the power sector. I'm still struggling I'm still struggling to understand how exactly.
I
don't get it.
That's why I said that if the discos can come out and tell us what part of their service requires forex, and what part of their service does the evaluation of naira and forex affect, then we now begin to understand with them. But until that, I think they are also just taking advantage of the current situation to justify, an increase in tariff. It's just, everybody's increasing tariff. Let's also jump into the fray. Because again, apart from this issue of forex, you know that NEC has also said is that look, there's already subsidy removal from electricity.
Okay.
So I guess the government is already telling the discos every form of subsidy on electricity in Nigeria is going to go. Find a way to, build the people to make your money without expecting anything from government. I think that's the position, and that's why there's this drive for increase in tariff.
All right, thank you very much. The truth of the matter, the bottom line is that import duties have increased. This would mean, aside from job losses and slow business for a lot of people in the maritime sector, you also have the fact that cargo will be trapped at terminals for quite a long while before they can actually have access. Well, the story is on page 6 of The Guardian and page 2 of the Punch newspaper. That's as regards 40% hike, in vehicle duties. So help also. I can just imagine someone who buys the car at 4 million, and then the person is in transport business. How much the person will have to use to clear it. That's interesting.
If you have a vehicle now, just maintain it, use it, and I'm sure a lot of selling used cars will now sell Nigerian used cars.
But
people would have, I think that's been.
You glossed over something now. I glossed over it because you mentioned it as regards the fact that this could birth smuggling. We have that already, but it could, smuggling will now then be on the increase, where you have people have to start, smuggling in goods and cars and all of that into the country.
That would, because again, people would still have to find a way to do these things, and like I said, what that would mean is that for corrupt custom officials, this is the time for them to catch up, because people are going to be so desperate now and be looking at every means to smuggle these cars in. We've been told that OMOBOLA is open now, and that will be one major point for all of these things to happen. Because, how will people pay these kinds of huge tariffs and levies and, pay duties and all of it? It won't happen. It will just further mess up the whole situation for people. But again, I think Nigerian used cars have been selling in the last 2-3 years. I think more will sell now, and prices are going to go up. Vehicles that we're buying, when I talk about Nigerian used cars, vehicles that we're buying for 1.5 million naira before, maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, Sandra. Now, an average vehicle now that is supposed to sell ordinarily for 1.5 million Nigerian used car now sells for like 3.54 million naira.
Yeah, the breakdown is here now. It's very simple. No one even went as far as breaking it down to the fact that, say for example, the total duty payable on a Toyota Camry used to be 901,000 before.
Duty, not the cost of the vehicle.
Duty, exactly. The total duty that's payable on it before you can bring it in. Now it has been increased from 901,000 naira. Now it is 1.2. That's duty. 1.270. Yes, that's the duty. That's on Toyota Camry. On Venza, it used to be 1.6, and now it is 2.2.
It's 1.6 to 2.2. That's about 600.
Toyota Corolla was 786,000. Now it is 1,097,000.
And it's dependent on the year of
the make, yes, the model, or the year of the model.
And
yes,
the year itself.
Lexus RX used to be 1.8, is now 2.5. It's scary. I don't know what to make of that one. I don't know. Maybe I should just go and buy Kurokwe, or I should just go and buy Marwa.
No worry. We'll be fine. But for anybody that owns a car now, please maintain it.
That's just it.
Hold on to it and just because again, I don't think this is the end of it all. Though.
The hike is going. The hike is moving, and as the hike is moving, Nigerians are stepping up higher. And that's all I have to say. Let's just encourage each other, because at this point now, so help us God, we'll breathe. Still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, I have here: UK awaits Tinubu's cabinet, ready for stronger ties with Nigeria. UK is more anxious about the cabinet than even we Nigerians. All right. The British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Richard Montgomery, has said the United Kingdom is awaiting the appointment of ministers by President Bola Tinubu before taking steps to strengthen collaboration. And Montgomery spoke to newsmen in Abuja at the weekend and said the UK government had identified 6 areas in which both countries could strengthen cooperation and explore new areas to build upon for mutual benefits. This conversation as regards ministers, and a lot of people are of the opinion, or there are indications that maybe when the president comes back from his France trip, and then we can have a list of ministers. I was also on the political roundtable yesterday. There was also a lot of permutations and conversations, let me just put it that way, as regards the appointment of ministers, emphasizing on round pegs in round holes. But before we move on from this story, FUAD, judging by the 8 special advisors that were appointed some 2 weeks or so ago, do you believe that we may actually have technocrats on the ministerial list?
Well, we have to be clear what exactly we mean by technocrats. Okay. Again, because our own definition of a technocrat may be different from the definition of politicians when they are talking about technocrats. Because again, don't be surprised that the politician will tell you that, look, even if you're a politician and you have been in business, you have a degree in a particular field, you should be considered a technocrat. But I'll say that, look, technocrats are people who understand the entire part of a business. They are people who have run a business in a particular field for years. They know the shortfalls, they know the booby traps, they know everything about the business, and so they are experts. And look, this is the reality, Sandra. And I think that was the major thing we discussed on the roundtable yesterday. The list of ministers will be dominated by politicians. Don't deceive us. Don't let us even deceive ourselves. Unless the government will now prove us wrong, this president will prove us wrong. But I know that, look, what we are going to see will be majorly ex-governors, politicians, what you can call the real thoroughbred politicians who have done a lot of work for the APC to merge and all of that. For technocrats, I don't know. And that's why I think that, look, if we are looking for technocrats, maybe we'll find them more as special advisors to the president. But if you are looking for technocrats as ministers, Sandra, I don't think that would happen, because the concern is very clear about who can become a minister. The fact that the president must choose from 36 states of the federation and the 6 geopolitical zones means that, look, there's no way. Okay, let me even tell you, there are already stories that, look, party leaders and governors are already submitting lists to the APC secretariat for ministerial nominations for onward transmission to the president. And I know that there's no way the president will choose ministers without consulting with the party, because most of these positions are supposed to be thank you package to party members.
That's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate, but that's the reality of Nigeria. That was why it took President Muhammadu Buhari months. Part of what took him months to appoint ministers, because he said, look, what exactly is their job? That ordinarily can run the government with permanent secretaries and civil servants. And eventually, when he was going to choose ministers, what did we see? We always saw party men, politicians, and I think that's what we're going to see eventually. Plenary. This 10th assembly will start plenary by July 4. That's the information we have. And we are hoping that immediately they start sitting for plenary, the list will be announced, and we'll start to review it. But my mind tells me that it's still going to be the same of the same. More of politicians and party people will make that list.
Well, a lot of things to come. It's a new administration, so of course these conversations will still be on for quite a while. But more details of that on page 6. That's the UK awaiting Tinubu's cabinet ready for stronger ties with Nigeria, and also the areas by which they think that they could actually go into some sort of business partnership with Nigeria. Also on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, we have here Nigeria loses $50 billion yearly to foreign domination, non-implementation of Cabotage Act, and that is on page 3. So just very, very quickly, foreign domination of Nigeria's waters due to non-implementation of the Cabotage Act costs the country an estimated 50 billion in capital flight yearly. And this submission was made at during the 2023 International Day of Seafarers, marked by the joint body of Nigerian Seafarers Professional Group in Lagos. All right, it comprises of a lot of associations, actually. The detail is there. The Day of Seafarer is a yearly event coordinated by International Maritime Organization. And what we have is that the Secretary General of Merchant Seafarers Association of Nigeria, Captain Alfred Oniye, lamented that foreigners have taken over shipping trade in the country. And jobs meant for local seafarers due to non-implementation of the Coastal Island Shipping Act 2003, also known as Cabotage Act. Now, very quickly, what is the Cabotage Act? The Cabotage Act is primarily to reserve the commercial transportation of goods and services within Nigerian coastal and inland waters to vessels that are flying the Nigerian flag and are owned by persons of Nigerian citizenship. That's basically the objective of the Cabotage Act, to ensure that the commercial transportation of goods and services on our coastal region, Nigerian coastal region or inland waters,
by Nigerians,
are to be owned by persons of Nigerian citizenship, and they must also be flying the Nigerian flag. And as it is now, there's non-implementation of that. So our coastal, Nigerian coastal and inland waters have been taken over by foreigners.
Well, we have to protect local businesses, and I think the easiest way to also ensure that our own guys are able to compete when it comes to water transportation and all of that is to fund it, is to make funds available to them. Because I think the reason why the foreign guys are dominating that sector is that they have better financial capacity, but with the act must also come with some form of financial backing. That's it for me, because it's still all about money. They have the money to buy the bigger vessels. They are able to invest more. They are able to invest more in technology and all of that. So can our local guys compete with these foreign guys? So if the government is able to put up an act and wants to implement it, I also think that we must find a way to also make some financial backing in terms of loan. With some good interest rates and all of that available to these guys.
Well, to be fair, the Act does actually provide the Cabotage Vessel Financing Fund, CVFF. It's actually a part
Has it been implemented?
Yeah, that's where, yes, thank you very much. So that's where it comes in now for shipbuilding and all. So that's where, the financing and funding comes in now, as you rightly mentioned.
So the government must ensure that is implemented and made available to them, because they would not be able to compete with these foreign guys if that is not done.
More details on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper, and that's all we can take from the Guardian newspaper. Very quickly, we'll run through what we have on the Punch. You're listening to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Mainland FM. We're looking through major trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. My name is OMOBOLA Sandra, and I have FUAD SAHEED via the phone line giving analysis to the stories that we are treating this morning. Now, we have taken the major headline of the Punch, which is as regards Naira devaluation and vehicle duties. More details of that on page 2. Moving forward, however, we have here clerics warn Muslims not to borrow for Salah Rams. Don't borrow.
I just said that.
Yes.
Well,
She built tomorrow.
It's not compulsory. You have the means killed. If you don't have the means, celebrate with all that. Life goes on.
Yes, thank you. The story is on page 12 of the Punch newspaper.
And don't hoard. Anybody that is going to kill ram, don't hoard it. Give it to people.
That's very major, actually, yes.
Because
if you can afford
some
it,
of these
share.
are share. Some of our Muslim brothers and sisters, we have this tendency of now hoarding meat. There's this thing Yoruba called eroniyo. Do you know it?
No, I don't know. Please.
You don't know it. where we preserve meat with salt, and then the thing is there for months. So the spirit of Salah. The doctrine itself is that when you kill, share it to people. Just give it out to people. The needy, mostly.
All right. Thank you very much, FUAD. Now, still on the front page of the Punch, above the masthead, we have debt servicing rose to 1.24 trillion naira in first quarter of 2023. So, as it is now, Nigeria's debt servicing cost has increased by 55.71% in 3 months. According to data obtained from the DMO, that's Debt Management Office, between October and December, Nigeria spent 406.77 billion naira on domestic debt servicing, while they spent $312.27, that is $143.74 billion naira on external debt servicing, and that's giving a total of 550.51 billion naira. However, between January and March 2023, we have spent 1.2 trillion on servicing debts in this country. FUAD, is this enough justification for all of the hikes that we're seeing around?
Well, that's what the government will say. That look, we are so much indebted to the point where we now have to go on a very aggressive revenue drive, and that's what you're seeing from the hikes and increases that we're seeing. But unfortunately, we would have to still borrow more, because again, we are servicing these loans. We still have to continue to pay. My mind tells me that look, the government would go on this aggressive revenue drive and still have to borrow more, because of the fact that look, this revenue drive is not going to yield results almost immediately. It's going to take a little while for us to have some form of balance in terms of our projections, budget projections, and all of that. So that's the justification. We've overborrowed. Yes, people will tell you that look, the debt to GDP, it gives us a window of about 70% to continue to borrow. But I've always asked the question: do we have enough? Are we making enough money? And then when we make enough money, how do we spend that money? Are we spending wisely? Because if you see anybody that has gone bankrupt, you can have a situation where you earn a big salary, Sandra, and then before the end of the month you are broke.
Yeah.
True. It will not have to be that look, you are earning high, but your spending pattern is poor. So as Nigeria continues to look at that aggressive revenue drive, we also have to look at our spending pattern. What exactly are we spending this money on? And then we have to also check corruption. When you see figures of billions missing in this particular and all of that. So it has to be an holistic thing. But in the midst of all of that, Nigerians should continue to brace up. It's going to be very tough going forward.
Yeah, because some people would say, if you have such high, debt servicing amounts, what then would be available for investment in infrastructure and key sectors of the economy? When we are spending 1.24 trillion naira on servicing there, and that's just the first quarter, and by next week we'll be in the third quarter of the year. So help us God. More details on page 14 of the Punch newspaper. And finally, we have from the Punch newspaper, Lagos Ibadan gridlock traps motorists for hours. That is another major problem for a lot of people, especially now that a lot of people would want to travel for the Ilia celebration. So hundreds of motorists and commuters were trapped for hours in the gridlock induced by the ongoing road construction at the Berger end of the Lagos Ibadan expressway. And as it is now, there are indications that the gridlock worsened when the construction workers collapsed both routes of the expressway into 2 lanes. That's deep.
I think people already say that. I think some of the barriers have been removed. But in the last 2-3 weeks, let's say a month, Sandra, the situation on that road has been crazy. People have been suffering, and this is a time where the price of petrol has gone up. So you now have people burning the same expensive fuel in a needless traffic.
In traffic.
That's why I said that road has to go into the Guinness Book of Records. And you know the kind of attitude you get from the contractor, Julius Badger. If you get a feel like they are doing the job as if they are doing us a favor. And somebody just posted something funny on his status now, a friend that look, can Julius Badger just open up that road? We'll be using it like that. We don't do it again. We are okay. It's fine. Because you ask yourself, when exactly will that road be completed? We had a timeline of December last year, Sandra. We started with the timeline of December last year. Later, it was shifted to February. Later, it was shifted to May 29 that President Muhammadu Buhari will commission that road. Now, we are already going towards July. Don't be surprised that if we are not careful, December this year we'll still be talking about that road. Or maybe December next year. What exactly are they doing on that road?
They are fixing.
Is there a ritual going on?
Well, FUAD, that's a big question that a lot of people would, ask. And then a lot of people are also asking the question of the rail line from Lagos to Ibadan, which ordinarily is supposed to also, make things easier along that route. Or what do you think as regards the rail system? Lagos to Ibadan, Ibadan to Lagos in this country?
I think the rail system is good, but I think a lot of commuters have complained about the cost. I think it's even more expensive than using regular buses and all of that, because people would have to travel. I can imagine what tomorrow will be. Tomorrow a lot of people would have to travel out of Lagos for Salah celebration and all of that. So the rail lines, I think, will still help, but what about the cost? I think there are a lot of reasons for people to also be wary about using the rail line for travel. What are the safety concerns for people?
All right, thank you very much for that. More details of that particular story on the Punch newspaper. Yes, we have it in the Punch newspaper, pages 4 and 5 of the Punch. All right, we're moving on now to Vanguard very quickly, just in a few seconds. I have here above the masthead of Vanguard: subsidy, lack of license, foreign exchange, others hinder fuel importation. So the writer says that only NNPCL is still importing fuel. Ex-depot price has gone up again to 505 naira per litre. Lord have mercy. Okay, so barely a month after deregulation, operators in the downstream sector have not been able to import mainly to lack of license and lack of foreign exchange. And also the fact that ex-depot price is now over 505 naira over the weekend.
You know what, Sandra? If we are not careful, in the next 3-4 years, the status quo will still remain, where NNPC will still be the only ones importing refined fuel into this country. Because again, when we say we open up with deregulate, I always tell people, you can deregulate and say you are operating a free market economy, but there will still be dominant players who, as a result of access to forex, access to some other things that other competitors don't have, will still dominate the market.
Thank you.
So whether we like it or not, just a minute, Sandra, just 30 seconds. Whether we like it or not, the NNPC still has a better standing than anybody that gets a license to bring in fuel into this country. And if we're not careful, in the next 4 years, the status quo will still be what we are talking about.
That is the reality of things as at now. Well, we'll have to take a short break now. We'll be back definitely by 8:40 for Milan Focus, where we'll be discussing at length with your input, of course, 2 or more of the major trending stories from the papers. This is still Milan 98.3 FM. Please stay tuned.
You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM.